Brock, tell us, I guess, you had a big relationship with Block.One. What's the relationship now? Like, are you guys still hanging out? You still cool? Like, what's going on?
I mean, I don't know how I couldn't be cool with the Block.One team. I mean, I've worked with them for 13, 14, 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're still a shareholder, still actively involved and doing
well,
stuff?
I don't have any formal role with Block.One. I stepped out of any formal role.
Okay, cool.
But obviously, I'm always active and always doing things.
Yeah, cool. And so with how does that sort of work with I guess with EOS now? EOS is obviously major construction, and Block.One just recently got a big investment as well with Peter Thiel as well. Tell us about that. Like, what sort of the plans there?
Well, they have an opportunity to bring in highly strategic, highly influential figures that continue to support the rollout of the things that Block.One is working on. Obviously, that's a good thing when that opportunity presents itself, and more resources are not a bad thing.
Yeah.
As you try to figure out how to programs like EOS VC, putting $1 billion of resources out there to help developers build the things that need to be built. That's a big deal when you're trying to launch a big blockchain.
Yeah.
And so that's a great thing. Wonderful people. Peter Thiel is obviously one of the most influential, highly thought of people in tech, maybe a little less as a result of the Trump stuff, but that's mostly just in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I don't think that takes away from any of the amazing things that he's accomplished.
No, 100%. Any exciting projects like you're looking at within, being built on EOS that you're looking at that you go, you would really enjoy?
Well, I really like the Everipedia sort of team. I got to know them 4 years ago when they were working out of an office next to the UCLA campus, and kind of watched their entire development, and then eventually coming into blockchain, and they're trying to do something I think that's very interesting. I mean, if you look at Wikipedia, it's one of the most important resources that most of us use on the internet, but it doesn't look like it's been updated in 20 years. And it's always got a donate button on it, and that's part of the problem, is that they clearly don't have enough resources, or they're not using the resources that they have to make things better.
Yeah, 100%.
And I have to believe that, 20 years later, that type of service can be built better today.
Yeah, definitely.
And so they've got a lot of ideas as to how they're doing that. So I think that's interesting. And obviously there's a huge pipeline of amazing things being built on EOS. I mean, it's almost every single person I talk to here is like, we're building on EOS, we're building on EOS, we're building on EOS. We've been building here, but it doesn't work. We're building there. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And what about in terms of with EOS and people raising money? Like, do you see people raising money on EOS or still continuing to raise money on ETH, or what sort of...
Well, I mean, I think that, Ethereum has done an extraordinary job of disrupting venture capital, which, has been a big part of what I do, having been a VC, an entrepreneur, playing the part of a VC for a little while, because that's how I could just be of service. But clearly venture capital had major issues. The two most important of which are that it's illiquid and that it was, kind of a walled garden, an exclusive boys club. And what tokenizing, or like what we did with BCAP, and what you're seeing now with all of the ICOs, whether they be utility securities, is you're democratizing sort of access to deals with some limitations if its securities are unaccredited, non-accredited, but the process in general is, anytime you're democratizing markets, you're making things better. And then obviously bringing liquidity as well. Most people don't want to participate in that asset class because they're committing to 10 or 12 or 14 years of having their capital tied up. And the historical returns have not justified that type of lockup. So two major problems with venture capital. Obviously, Ethereum has been the primary platform by which that disruption has been occurring. And so I think it's fantastic. Do I think that type of stuff can be done on EOS? Yeah, obviously. There's probably like an EOS 21 standard coming or something.
Yeah, for sure. With I guess, raising and tokenizing, there's been a lot of airdrops on EOS as well. And that sort of new way of raising awareness or doing an ICO. How do you sort of see ICOs changing in the future? Because right now there's a lot of flux as to how new projects are coming about.
Yeah, so Dan Larimer coined the term of a decentralized autonomous corporation. I prefer the term decentralized autonomous community. And so I like to use that same acronym in an ICO. It's an initial community offering. I mean, that's what you're ultimately doing here is you're building community. And how do you build a successful community? You build a successful community from a leadership perspective by serving the community first and always doing what's in the best interest of your community, taking care of yourself second. As long as you're always acting as a steward, serving your community first, you're doing the right things from a leadership perspective. And then obviously you need to have a lot of people engaged. And airdrops are an effective means by which to connect with a lot of people that, you know, your story may resonate with. So I'm a big fan of the airdrop model. I mean, ultimately, you're trying to get the tokens in the hands of as many people that want to support the project long term, not about flippers. You know, you're trying to get people that, you know, buy into what it is that you're doing and want to be part of whatever change you're trying to make in the world.
Yeah, cool. Tell us about how sort of DNA started. So that's obviously your major thing you're working on now, I'm assuming. How did that begin?
One of many things, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else are you working on? Maybe talk through some of those things first, and then let's talk about DNA after.
Well, I'm very focused on markets less than deals. I've done so many deals. The deals don't really interest me that much anymore. I care about having as big an impact in the world as you possibly can positively. And so Puerto Rico is a major focus. And how is it that you help an island of, you know, extraordinary people that are, you know, just been dealt a bad hand for 500 years and at a time where they need it. The main problem that they're facing hasn't been the hurricane. It's a much bigger issue than that. Obviously, the hurricane just made things worse. But and hurricane season's begun again, and power's not even back on in all of the island, which is kind of crazy considering it's the United States. 30% of the island is still without power, 10% of the population, and we're back into hurricane season again. But the real issue has been that you've had a flight of intellectual capital, human capital, financial capital, call it a brain drain. And so the people with the means have all been moving to New York and other places and leaving because the environment just is not tenable for most. And then if you're a college kid graduating from school in Puerto Rico, the University of Puerto Rico, EOS is the number 15 engineering school in the United States. And when you graduate, there are no venture-backed companies in Puerto Rico. There are no like great startup jobs. There haven't been any of these things that if you want to do something and stay where where you're from, you don't really have that option. If you have a dream, if you want to go do great things in the world, really the only way for that dream to be a reality is to leave. And that's why Google and Facebook and NASA, et cetera, come and recruit so many Puerto Ricans. And so all the youth are basically funneling out. All the people with means are funneling out. And so you have this massive brain drain underway. How do you deal with that? With a brain gain. And so thousands of amazing people from the crypto community, as well as thousands of others, just conscious sort of people that care about, you know, what's going on in the world and where this story is resonating with them, are moving to Puerto Rico. Here in Korea, you have 60 Korean businesses that are moving to Puerto Rico because the story resonates with them. The message resonates. And so the idea is it's an influx of intellectual capital, human capital, and financial capital. And that starts to, you know, that brings the venture capitalists, it brings the angel investors, it brings the mentors. So college kids that are graduating now can join startups. They can create their own startups. You know, all of those things that the tools were never present to make that a reality. And so that's a 10 or 20 year sort of process and investment in the youth into the next generation. And so Puerto Rico is a big focus. The Philippines has become a big focus. And that's because the Philippines has a population of 100 million people, 80% of whom, or 80 million people, are unbanked.
Yeah.
It's the largest remittance country in the world per capita. It used to be 28% of their GDP, but that's been falling. The government has just created a new special economic zone. You kind of have all the green lights. And over 5% of the population of the Philippines today are using blockchain wallets for remittance and things, but not knowing it most of the time. It's products like coins.ph. And so the Philippines, I think, is likely to become the most important crypto market next year in terms of where we're starting to really impact financial inclusion, where we're starting to really positively impact the lives of people. And you have about 2/3 of the population of the planet that are unbanked or underbanked. Imagine if you had all your bank accounts shut down today, if you had all your credit cards shut off today, PayPal, Venmo, et cetera, you know, what would life be like? And that's a problem that most of the world faces if you're in Latin America, Africa, or Southeast Asia. And in the same way that Africa leapfrogged wired telecommunication and went straight to wireless, it's this type of technology that's going to be bringing change to these billions of people. And then obviously Korea has been a focus of mine. I lived here for a long time. I used to run all the virtual currency markets in Korea back when they were just gaming. And so you trade World of Warcraft gold or Second Life.
Did you buy Item Page?
So Item Bay and Item A, I bought them both. I was
Yeah.
chairman, and then the two founders were the CEOs.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I had over 90% market share in South Korea for a decade, doing $1 billion a year here, a team of 700.
What do you think of Rarebits?
No opinion.
No. It's very new, I guess. It's trying to do, I guess, a lot of the
Gaming stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of gaming plays that, you know, I've spent time kind of sharing my thoughts on.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, that's what I did before. I just started to do it all over the real world. It's kind of like going backwards, and I tend to spend my time. I help people that are working on things that are no longer that interesting to me or things that I don't learn from, because I just try to be helpful. I live my life in service.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's not the stuff that interests me. So my focus these days, I mean, that's why I got out of that business and I'm doing this business.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still in that business, I guess, in some way. But
and so which business is like your 80% focus? What's like the one that you
I don't have one.
No.
Well, I'm involved in probably over 200 projects in the space. So I focus my time based upon where I can make the biggest impact.
Sure.
And so,
Where's that right
you know,
now?
if EOS needs help with things, I obviously spend a lot of time trying to support the things that are relevant to the EOS network, the EOS mainnet, the EOS block producers, you know, the overall, call it EOS community. You know, DNA gets some of my time. I'm here in Korea because I have other things I need to do here, and it's also, you know, so you asked about how DNA got started.
Yeah.
And so everything I have, I tend to share. I live very much in a sort of gifting culture. I don't value anything I can buy. If I can buy it, I give it away. Everything I wear, everything I have is a gift, typically, unless it's like a pair of socks. Yeah, I don't value money very much. It's, again, not that interesting to me. I'm playing the game of, well, I think most people are playing the game of compounding interest, which is, you know, self-interest. How are they taking care of themselves, and how do they take what they have to continue to produce more for themselves, storing value for their own benefit? I'm playing a different game, a game of what I call compounding impact. You know, how do you go make a positive impact in the world? I'm not focused on myself. I'm not focused on, you know, broke. My name Brock also means broke. I'm going for broke. I tend to give away everything I have over time. Again, it's about impact. And so the Korean Peninsula was the last piece, and then I'll give you the DNA thing. Something wonderful's happened here, and that was that the Winter Olympics happened here. And my buddy Shin is here. He opened up the first 4 minutes of the Winter Olympics. So when the torch came, it hit him, and he choreographed all the opening fire performance, and he was also the founder of Burning Man Korea. And so the Winter Olympics did something incredible. It brought the North and South Korean leadership together and gave them a reason to connect. And it opened up a door, you know, a rather incredible door, which then Trump, whether you like him or not, you know, chose to walk through it. And something, you know, incredible might be happening here. There's the potential for unification between the North and the South, between the Korean Peninsula. It's like the Berlin Wall falling if it happens. And so that's kind of, these are the types of things when I see these opportunities in the world that, you know, I drop everything I'm doing with blockchain. I mean, most of the things I just talked about have nothing to do with blockchain. It has to do with how do you start impacting lives in places where you can, you know, create a lighthouse to show people what's possible, to give people a reason to believe in something more than themselves.
And so with that, I guess, you know, just going back to DNA, so
So I hold space. I hold space all the time.
Yep.
And I've been obviously doing deals for a long time. I'm one of the founders of Mastercoin. We invented the ICO, and we've done so I've obviously been in the market for a very long time doing lots of deals. And so my partner, Scott Walker, and I had started, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 companies prior to him getting into the crypto space. And he was one of the first guys to come into crypto with me back in 2012. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, he came up to me. He's like, Brock, I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I drop everything I was doing and just do this full time with you? Because he had a couple of other businesses that were going from 50 million a year to 100 million a year that he had started and, you know, doing very well. And those distractions, because of the financial sort of opportunity that it presented, you know, kept him distracted until he's like, I need to stop it all. And so he went and sold the businesses for pennies on the dollar. I think he probably got 50, 60, 70 cents. He sold them to the inside investors and just said, I'm out of everything. And so then Scott just would come to the places where I would hold space and bring people together and create, community, where people would share ideas and, assist each other in the ways that they could. And, this is where a lot of interesting deals kind of have popped out of, over the years.
That's right.
Spaces that we hold.
So
Scott just started following behind with the bucket, I guess. And it's evolved into a very interesting firm that's...
And you've invested, obviously, in DNA as well. You're one of the key...
Well, Scott and I are the two founders, yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott's chairman. I'm chairman of the advisory board. I don't like to sit on boards. I don't like any real responsibility. I mean, specific to any one organization, everybody that knows me knows I do a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have a ton of time to commit, but I do what I can with the time that I have, and I show up when I'm needed.
Yeah. And I guess you've got some really interesting projects with DNA. You've got Hashgraph, and now there's Good Money as well. Do you want to tell us a bit about those two projects and why you like them?
Well, Hashgraph is another attempt at building scalable blockchains, and I'm chain agnostic. I'm still chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation. I've obviously been a huge supporter of Ethereum and many, many, many other chains. My view is if that anyone succeeds in making the world a better place, we all win. As long as people are doing things with good intention, I'm there to support it. And so that's what the Hashgraph guys are doing. The Good Money team are obviously good friends. Ganar and Bear Kate, we're all sort of part of the same Burning Man camp called Red Lightning. It was something that I helped start back in 2008. My first year was in 2009. And so when I had my first wedding at Burning Man, Bear and his wife Kati had their wedding on the same day in the same place the year before. And so our wedding also then became their anniversary party. Oh, cool. And so Bear is a friend that I helped bring into the space. He's an investor in Block.One. Yep. And Ganar is another friend, brought in. And then Nick Sullivan, who's their CTO, was the founder of ChangeTip. I led his seed financing. And so it's all just friends getting together, hanging out, and then figuring out how to go do good things in the world.
Yeah. What sort of, I guess you have such an intense lifestyle, like you're traveling all around. How do you balance that up? Because I find a lot of entrepreneurs, they you need to balance health and lifestyle. Because I know right now you said you're on a 5-day only water diet.
Yeah, I'm on a 5-day stoic water fast. So there's no coffee, no juice, no anything. It's water.
And no food as well.
Not a bite of anything.
Okay, 5 days.
I'm only a day and 2/3 in. Okay. So, but I feel good. The second day is when people normally start to get very hangry. Hangry, yeah. Or they start to get the shakes. Yeah. And that's because they normally have too much sugar. They're normally doing processed sugar, and when your body starts to get too much processed sugar and you go off it, literally your body will start shaking. The fact that I feel so good means I'm in good health. Because by day 3, what's happening is you're normally starting to feel very good. Because you kind of get through all the body's, sort of initial shocks from receiving no food. Yep. But your energy levels then start to rise. A lot of your energy is spent on digestion. And so actually from an energy perspective, I'm turbocharged.
That's cool. And what other things do you use? Like what other diets or things do you follow?
Well, right now I'm just experimenting with all of them. It's like blockchains, right? It's A/B testing. It's split testing. I did Lent this year. I just observed Ramadan for a month. I'll do Yom Kippur. I'm doing all the religious fasts. I'm doing all the other fasts. And the ultimate lesson that I get from most of it is discipline. To be able to sit at my own dinners here with phenomenal food being served to everyone and abstain and just drink water. You learn discipline.
That's cool.
And, whenever you can, I constantly talk about things like Ikigai, the idea of figuring out what you love, what you're good at, and what the world needs. And the center of that is your life's purpose. And then I also often talk about a concept called Kaizen, which is the idea of continually improving. Do things as well as you can and wake up tomorrow and do it better. Yeah. And so I'm trying to do all of it at once. I might not make it all 5 days if I can't go on stage and make my talks and do my meetings and make my calls. Sure. If I can't do those things, then I will break my fast early, but I think I'll make it 5 days.
So, Brock, if you were to isolate down, what's the thing that you're better than anyone else at? You just crush every time and just naturally win. I guess it's almost today a superpower. Yeah. What would you say that is?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm better than everyone at anything, because there's always someone better at something for the most part. But one of the things I'm very good at, what are the superpowers, let's say, that I use most frequently. And again, superpowers are just those skills that we've developed over the course of our lives. Often they come naturally, because those are the things that we often find ourselves in our life's purpose working our way into, the things we're good at. But you can go learn anything if you're willing to put in the time and effort. But Malcolm Gladwell, in his books, talks about it best. It's what have you invested 10,000 hours in? Sure. Just so that people, when people hear superpower, they're like, oh, that sounds like, something weird. It's called what are you good at? What have you invested 10,000 hours at? And a lot of people don't even know what their superpowers are. That's the sad thing, is that a lot of times people are like, I'm good at marketing. It's not a superpower. I mean, it is potentially, but it's, figure out how to refine that down to something more specific. So I use storytelling often, as a skill. I've obviously learned how to communicate well over the course of my life. I was kind of born into the business of communicating off of other people's scripts. The difference now is I write most of my own, but still borrowing from all the wonderful things around. And a big part of that is taking complex ideas and then distilling them down, into simple statements that people can understand, easily. It's the same thing I often tell people. If you don't understand what someone is proposing that you do in this space, you shouldn't be doing it. If you don't understand it, you shouldn't do it. And as long as you understand everything you do, you're not going to get ripped off. You'll avoid most of the scams. It's when people start talking to you in jargon you can't understand. Yeah. That, either they don't know how to explain things very well, or they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Yeah. Well, they probably haven't figured it out themselves. Yes, but that's exactly
They haven't done enough thinking
to refine it in a way where they can communicate it well or thoughtfully. And sometimes some people that's not their skill. And then what they need to do is go find someone where that is their skill. Someone that knows how to take complex ideas and present them simply and thoughtfully.
I'm just going to unpack that a bit, because I think what you're saying is you tell stories well.
Well, communication.
But I think it's a little bit more than that. It sounds to me like you take an idea and then boil it down further until it can be told almost. And it's that process as well, potentially. Is that part of your superpower? Do you find yourself coming in and providing that?
That's what I do for most everybody I work with,
That trigger moment.
Is I help people refine the story in a way where it will resonate with people, which is kind of one of the most important things if you're trying to launch something, because you could be building the greatest thing ever, but if people don't understand what you're building, it's not going to resonate with them in a way where you're going to get their attention. You're not going to get their engagement. They're not going to connect with what it is that you're doing. And so the other thing I do a great deal of is, I've been in the space a long time, know obviously a lot of people in the space, and have a fairly good memory, and so I'm very active connector of connecting people that need to meet. And if you hang out for a few minutes, you'll see how it's just never-ending weaving or connecting of dots.
That's cool. I guess with every person like yourself, you're quite a visionary, and obviously being that storyteller, but having those defining moments, you'd have weaknesses as well. And obviously,
of course, we all have lots of them.
Yeah, but I'm assuming you'd have people around you as well. Who are the people that you tend to hire that you keep closest to you?
You also have to work with what you got. And so, it depends on what the project is. From a personal perspective, the most important thing, in terms of the team that I surround myself with, and the ethos that I try to communicate is being critical. And obviously not everybody is where they need to be in life, and you need to understand that and be patient with people, and give them the time or the grace that they need to grow. We're all growing. We're all still here learning, sharing with each other. But integrity. Don't ever compromise your integrity, especially where we're going now. The world is going to become less forgiving, and that's what you're seeing right now. Is the weak hands in the space that are being washed out because of their integrity issues. It's not because they were early and didn't keep up or this or that, or normally what happened is they got greedy, saw the economic opportunities, and started making moral compromises, to make another buck. They're being two-coin operated. And so, that's obviously a key part. I value experience, to the extent people have it. You don't have to have done things 100 times to be good at something, but it's nice when someone has proven, their abilities, but that doesn't mean you don't give opportunities to those that haven't. But
what are the jewels that you look for in a person? What's like that person you go? Yeah.
Well, again, there's not a specific thing. It's like entrepreneurs. They come in all shapes, sizes, genders, skills. Some are quiet, some are introverts, some are extroverts. I guess what you're looking for is a fire. Yeah. You're looking for a spark. Yeah. You're looking for something where, and also most importantly, that you can work well together. I mean, it's ultimately you have to have that chemistry. Yeah. Not everybody is gonna. We're not all gonna work well with everyone. Not everyone's gonna like you, no matter how hard you try, right? You're looking for chemistry. You're looking for integrity. You're looking. It's basic stuff. Capability. Do they say talk or chalk is cheap? Do they get their shit done?
Yeah.
GSD.
I guess to finish up, what do you see as the future? Obviously, you're a very, very big believer in blockchain changing the world, obviously, and changing the world, making a massive impact. But I guess, what are you seeing right now? What's your where are the places that are going to be affected right now that you think, it's sort of on the cusp. It's been going for about 3 or 6 months, but now it's going to sort of change. Where do you see that happening over the next 12 months? And I guess,
well, I hope it's financial inclusion, but it could come from a bunch of areas. Right now we don't have the moral high ground. Most everybody that externally looks in at what we're doing, what they see is a bunch of speculators making a bunch of money on a bunch of hype. And then a lot of theoretical talk about the great things that we can do in the world, but you're not seeing enough evidence of it. I think this is all fine, but if we want this story to continue to resonate with a broader audience, we have to start having, very good data around these are the lives being impacted here and there, and here is how and why. But until we can start to demonstrate that in more meaningful ways, we're only going to continue to resonate with people that are here to make a buck. And that's important because without the speculators, the next step wouldn't be possible. Without the liquidity, without actually the robust nature of the market that's been developed, and without all that liquidity, these next, sort of products wouldn't be possible. So it's all good and it's all happening in the right order, but, it's critical. It's imperative at this point that we actually start making a real difference in the world. We have to be not just talking about it, but we have to be proving that we're actually making those impacts. And I think Puerto Rico is one of them, as I said. The Philippines, I think, is one of those. Korea certainly has the potential for it, but it's the whole world over. Again, the developing world, financial inclusion is a big area. We're seeing from an energy perspective, lots of peer-to-peer sort of energy grids using solar. Again, in many parts of the world, power is just not prevalent.
What about security tokens and tokenizing companies?
I think that's going to be a huge, massive. I think it's going to be much bigger than utility tokens. I think by next year, security tokens will surpass utility tokens, and that's because not everything needs to be on a blockchain. Everyone's trying to take their business and say, hey, let me put it on a blockchain. Not everything needs a distributed database, a decentralized database. Not everything needs that. And so you have a lot of projects that are just slapping a blockchain on it, and I'm not sure that's a good idea. But where the blockchain is applicable to every company is in an improved instrument for its ownership. Traditional companies pay royalties, dividends, they have stock, they have, bonds or debt. As we start to tokenize all these traditional financial instruments, that means every company on the planet stands to benefit from this. Not necessarily because their company is being built on a blockchain, but they're changing the means by which they settle trades, transactions, efficiency, transparency, immutability. All of these things across the capital markets are going to be massive. I think every stock in the world is going to end up as a security token. I think that, all of these instruments are going to go, which is why it's going to be so much bigger than utility tokens in the near term, because the world's capital markets are still quite a bit larger. I think all the world's real estate is going to be tokenized, and those will all be security tokens, obviously, for the short term at least.
Do you have a forecast, Brock, for Bitcoin at the end of the year in terms of price?
End of the year? Well, first of all, I don't really give. This is not an investment advice. This is not financial advice. But for the purposes of the fun, this is more for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
Well, I always say, people, 5 to 10 years out, it'll be somewhere between 0 and 1 million, right? Bitcoin obviously is, facing some challenges just due to, forks, right? That creates some confusion in the market. Newcomers coming in are like Bitcoin Cash, and that is very difficult for newcomers. We're experts, so we get it. But when you're someone new showing up to buy your first token, normally the first token you're going to buy is Bitcoin, and it's awfully confusing. So I think that, that's definitely playing a big part in the Bitcoin price being where it is. Probably would be quite a bit higher. Probably be a lot higher if that weren't the case. But I also understand that this is how you build open source decentralized systems. Forking is not a bad thing. Forking is, well, we're all here because of forks. We're the forks of our parents. Sure. You have
forks of
you have consensus based forks, and then you've got contentious forks, right? And yeah, the contentious forks are part of the process too. But Bitcoin, I doubt we'll see an all-time high before year end, but maybe, we could see an all-time high again. But my guess is it'll be higher than it is, hopefully over 10,000. Today's a good day. We're up, Bitcoin was at 7,500.
Yeah.
And then I think Bitcoin Cash is interesting too. I mean, I really disliked Ethereum Classic when it first happened, because I'm like, why do we need it should just let that fork just die, but it didn't. And I learned a lot from that. I dumped all of my Ethereum Classic early on, then I bought a bunch back at a higher price. But on a relative basis, it's still very much real, whatever people want to say about it. And again, I'm chain agnostic. I support anyone trying to do good things. I think Roger Ver does things with conviction, and I believe he always is doing the right thing in his mind. We're not always right, but Craig Wright, maybe not so much. But in terms of doing things for the right reasons or being good. But I think Roger is a person of high integrity. I've known Roger a long time. I mean, he used to go by Bitcoin Jesus before they started calling him Bitcoin Judas. He's doing what he thinks is right, and I continue to listen to the man.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Rob, as well.
Yeah.
It's good chatting to you, man.
Yeah.
It's a good chat.
Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
Sorry for keeping you waiting.
Oh, it's all good, man.
It's
good hangouts.
Madhouse.
Yeah, it's wild times.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah, really good. Very good. Great time to be in this industry, really.
It's the best it's ever been. Yeah. I'm grateful.
I think people will look back at this time and go, that was like the down of 2018, and then the next wave will come and we'll go, yeah, I made it through that.
Yeah, and I don't think this was much of a downturn compared to previous ones.
Sure.
This was, people are like, doesn't even feel down to me at all. But that's the thing too. You're seeing so many incredible entrepreneurs. You're seeing so many incredible people voting with their feet. And it's not just the talented people, because there's a lot of talent in the world. The people that I keep meeting in greater and greater abundance right now are people that are doing things like, from the heart. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing, people that are showing up with like real integrity, that are showing up, not just out of self-interest, but want to make a difference in the world. And it is that, the Bitcoin and the economic incentive, right? People come in because they go, oh, flat, shiny object can make some money. That's kind of what gets people to show up. But then some of them are showing up clearly for just the right reasons on day one. But what happens with most people, if you have a heart, is you start recognizing, wow, this is more than just an economic opportunity for me to make a buck. This is an opportunity for me to, give one, just like make an impact. And so it's been incredible. And it's the quality of people that are showing up right now. And I've said this over the years. In 2013, I'm like, wow, look at the quality of people showing up. In 2014, 15, 16, but now it's the most extraordinary people in the world that are all together making this happen. It takes all of us.